Okay, our next presentation has an interesting title, Cybersecurity Built In, Not Bolt On. So if you could give a warm round of applause for the German cyber security officer from Huawei Technologies, Mr. Ulf Feger.
Thank you. So you're highly welcome, so don't leave the room. So you have heard a lot about product security and trust into products. So we are a worldwide vendor of ICT equipment. So and exactly that is our hot topic, to enable the trust with the customers, with all our customers, whatever kind of customers we do have here. And that is what I'm basically going to talk about, is how do you enable security right from the beginning, not afterwards. So that is what we call built-in, not bolt-on. So give you a very, very short introduction into Huawei, just 1, 2, 3 slides. We are really a global corporation. Yes, our headquarters is in Shenzhen, however you pronounce that properly. It's exactly where you see the white arrow. That is basically our headquarters in Southeast China. And yeah, we are operating in around about 170 countries, at least 170 countries, with around about 176,000 employees. So a lot of nations, you can guess, 160 plus nations. And yeah, you see here basically the distribution across the planet. So the headquarters in China, all the other subsidiaries outside across the world, might be local headquarters, might be bidding centers, supply chain centers, etc., etc. So that is the requirement, or that is basically the infrastructure of a global company. You see that white arrow, I mentioned it before, Shenzhen. So very often I get the question, how does such a Chinese city look like? It looks different, very different, for example, to a European city or to a typical American city. In a typical American city, you have that, what we call bell-shaped topology. So you have the skyscrapers in the middle, and then the lower buildings outside. For example, Shenzhen, the city starts, the first skyscrapers, then you have 30 million inhabitants, then the city ends, no skyscrapers anymore. So it's really, really impressive. So basically it looks like that. 2 or 3 private photos here. That's Shenzhen downtown with one of the tallest skyscrapers there. It's really impressive. And if you like geocaching, it's a paradise for geocacher. So going to Hong Kong or Shenzhen doing geocaching, if you have the chance, do it. It's a lot of fun. You will find, I don't know how many thousands of geocaches there. So, how is Huawei set up? We have 3 business groups. The first one is what we call CBG, the consumer business. That is basically all about the mobile devices, tablets, all that typical consumer stuff we nowadays have. So that's very popular in the market. The second one is the carrier business. That is where we came originally from. So 45 of the 50 biggest operators worldwide are using our equipment. So we are in the market, we are very well perceived there. And the last one, and not the least one, is enterprise business. So all the typical ICT stuff you need, routers, switches, services, servers, the cloud stuff, etc. So yeah, that is basically where we make our money, where we provide products, services, technology, and a lot of innovations. So now you have seen a lot of colorful slides. If I usually explain to a customer or to an interested person, how do you do security, then I first have to speak about where do you need security. So that is what I state is cybersecurity whiteboarding on a napkin, because you can do it on a napkin, you can do it on a whiteboard, but you need to know what you talk about. So we have a lot of consumers using our stuff at home, in the office, on travel. connected to their cloud service provider or internet service provider using internet services. So you have interfaces, you do need security on both sides, definitely. And we also have, of course, other service providers using a server portal, for example, using their own infrastructure, hopefully with a fully and completed security architecture, using other partners, suppliers, banking services, etc. So all there, you definitely do need security. It's obvious. But you do need to find a supplier who you're able to trust, because otherwise your complete security architecture screws up. So, business partners, service providers, consumers. So what is the security challenge here? It's exactly how do you set up a secure architecture, a secure platform, a secure infrastructure, you name it, without knowing that your vendor built in security into his own products. So having a firewall that is not really a firewall, having a router or a switch with vulnerabilities and whatever else could be in there, without the guarantee, without the certification, with all that typical stuff, is your infrastructure really secure? I don't think so. So you do need to find a vendor you are able to trust. So I mentioned here the CeBIT information criteria like efficiency, effectiveness, confidentiality, so all the typical stuff. Of course, we are also working on that, but you do need more. You do need more, and that is what I'm going to talk about also. So I collected a lot of buzzwords from multiple sources, conference agendas, online webcasts, Q&A sessions, etc., etc. Definitely not complete, but just to give you a hint what we are also working on. Big data. Big data without security, I would say no, don't do it. So security here means data privacy, data security, Data Protection Act, all that typical stuff. So you have to think right from the beginning before you start thinking about big data use cases. Do I have any security challenges? Definitely. Cloud, do we have enough? I don't think so. So the paradigm, cloud will evolve, we're getting more and more and more. Is security a hot topic? No doubt about that. So we start with security architecture, design, implementation, all that stuff. So we announced here at the CeBIT, the OTC, the Open Telecom Cloud. It runs with the Huawei infrastructure. Is security built in? Definitely yes. Smart home. So a growing market, smart home. Smart home without security? I don't want to have it. I don't want to have equipment that can be remote controlled from outside of the building inside my house. So security needed? I think so. Car-to-car communication with minimum latency times and all that stuff. Security? Yes, please. Industry 4.0, a very hot topic in Germany, in Europe, in the US, in China too. So where is the security? We do need it here. Another very, very hot topic that nowadays comes in more and more CISO's, CIO's mind is supply chain management security. How do you guarantee that goods that you want to send from A to B are really the goods you send from A will arrive at B, are really the identical goods? It might happen that from A to B, there are several other letters in the alphabet. The goods take a longer route and then finally arrive at B. Are these products tampered anyhow? Could be. How do you guarantee that? That is part of supply chain security, which is a huge, huge topic on its own. Smart devices, wearables, we had it before. One of the hot topics here is data protection, data privacy. I want to be able to minimize the access to my private data. We have the operators technology, the frequency stuff of 3G, 4G, 4.5G, and 5G coming up, and also the technologies using those technologies then. Security, a need. Internet of Things, Things security. We have heard it before. I don't know how many million, billion devices will be expected to talk to each other in the next years with a minimum price and maximum security. I don't know how that will work out, but we are working on that. Mobile access to the cloud, access transfer, the typical stuff, smart city. We have use cases, we have implementation, several implementation in China. So the cities in China are a bit bigger than here in Europe. I said it before, Shenzhen around about 13 million, Guangzhou, which is on the northeast of Hong Kong, similar, more or less the same size. So there you definitely have other challenges than typically, I don't know how many inhabitants, for example, Cologne has, around about 1 million, 2 million, but 13 million is definitely a different number. Compliance and technologies, that is what drives the CSOs like me. How do you guarantee compliance? How do you prove compliance? How do you really be compliant? And how do you survive audits? And a lot of customers ask for security operations center support, defense cyber centers, etc. So you see, there are only a couple of topics on this list, but it's already taking minutes to talk about that. And then become about the challenges. So it's the German Data Protection Act. Excellent stuff. We have the European Data Protection Act, the GDPR coming up. So we have different niveaus, different levels of data protection regulations, let me call it that way, across Europe. Will be a challenge. For us as a worldwide supplier, such harmonization activities are definitely wonderful. Think about we're busy in around about 170 countries. How do you enable your how do you support the legal systems of 170 countries? We have spent a hell of effort on exactly those topics. ISO as a topic, so ISO compliance, the different communities we're working in, security compliance, other topics like ATP, cybersecurity awareness, data resiliency, security reporting, KPIs, etc., 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 etc. It's just a very short glimpse on those topics. But when I talk to customers, what they really want is exactly that. They want to have some kind of risk metrics to be able to influence their business decision. They are interested in IoT, whatever IoT means. They are interested in smart cities, whatever smart cities means. They're interested in all those topics, but what they definitely want to make sure is that they have a vendor, that they have a supplier they are able to trust, who A, supports their business ideas, and of course has not only products which are of value to their business, but which are also trustable. And that is one of the basics nowadays. So what I like to say is here, no security, no security, no future. So if you screw it up here, you screw up your business. So as I said before, we are working on IoT scenarios in smart cities, for example. And here you already have the mixture of different buzzwords, the mixture of different technologies. In this case, IoT and smart city. So we have here the smart city, the industrial IoT, the smart energy, the smart home, the smart car stuff, all this smart from right. I define it what smart is. Wonderful, wonderful buzzword, wonderful acronym. I can add to that, which is all fine. But what is really behind that is the security. So if you screw up security in one of those scenarios, basically what I said before, your whole business is screwed up. And as a vendor, if you screw it once, basically you are lost. So that is the reason why I spent such a huge effort on those security challenges to solve them. Another sample overview, I could call it a sample overview, is loThings, IoT under serious attack in the here what we have here is a pacemaker. So I listened last week or 2 weeks ago, there was a webcast from the Gjøvik University. A researcher presented about vulnerabilities in the pacemaker, and she had and a pacemaker implanted. That was her basically trigger to do some research on those stuff. What she found out is that that pacemaker had two remote control or two remote interfaces, two wireless interfaces, and her was told only about one, not about the second one. So she did some research, some very interesting research on that stuff. So do you really trust the vendor of your pacemaker? So that is, then it comes really to life issues. So when we basically have the same here. So attack home, attack the car, attack the body, that is what I mentioned before, attack a smart grid, or attack industrial IoT. So all that gets more and more complicated. And again, if you can't trust the vendor of your pacemaker, who do you else want to trust? So that is exactly the picture I've shown before. So those are the three business groups we have at Huawei. And the summary from my point of view here at this point of time is, get your vendor into your security board. So if you're in charge of your internal security, your supplier security, you're involved in development, implementation, on-site services, and you are not able to integrate your supplier security processes into your own, I don't want to say you're screwed up, but that is definitely a security challenge, a security issue that should be mitigated. So either you include your supplier into your processes, or your supplier includes you into his processes. So there definitely needs to be an interface for that. The little, in little smaller letters here, the otherwise question mark, that is basically your task. What will happen if you don't do that? If you're not able to speak clear words, clear security words with your vendor? The reason why I stress that here is I get a lot of RFIs, RFQs, or whatever you call them on my desk. And very often I get, oh, are you ISO certified? ISO 27001. Yes, of course we are certified. Are you doing this? Yes. Is your product secure? Yes. Is it certified? Yes. But no one really asked about our security processes. How do we include security right from the beginning, from an analysis of the market before we start developing a product? How do we include security then into the development phase, into the testing phase? How do you guarantee that there are no backdoors or vulnerabilities? How do you do the testing at all? Do you give your customers, from my perspective, our customers, access? How can the customers test regarding their requirements, our products, before, for example, they put them into production mode? So all those stuff should be in there. And I simply get the question, do you have bug fixes for the products? Which is a nice question, but it doesn't cover all. So what we have implemented, what we have set up, is basically what we call an end-to-end cybersecurity system. As I said before, we are a worldwide company, and we do need the proper processes in place. So, talking about strategy, governance, and control. So, we do need to have a clear strategy. That is exactly what I mentioned before. Where do you and when do you have to think about security? Is security above the commercial interest? In our company, yes, it is. So I very often get the request, Ulf, please sign, that stuff has to go to the customer and market. And I said, no, because we don't have a risk mitigation matrix, for example. I want to know the details. Basically the same it is within our company. So without having this proper security in place, we don't bring products to the market. It's simply too risky. So we also have a governance architecture. We have a complete global cybersecurity committee. So my boss is the global cybersecurity officer. That is the former CIO of the British government, John Suffolk. He is located in China, and he is head of the global cybersecurity office. And we have around about 10 to 14 local cybersecurity or chief security officers in the local markets. So I'm one of them, with a focus on Germany. So I don't want to read through all the text. That would cost definitely too much time. So standards and processes. So yes, we follow international standards. Otherwise, you're lost in the market because customers are asking for that. And we also join those industry organizations and look where we can share our stuff, contribute, and of course also use their stuff. So we are very busy with the ISF, very busy with the ETIS, a lot of standards organization we are busy with. So laws and regulations. That's a strategic element. So what I said before, busy in 170 plus countries, we have to understand the local needs, local laws and regulations. And we had that before in the meeting or in the panel before. Data protection, data security are nowadays a basic requirement. So you can't send data across the world based on your business case. The business case might sound wonderful, but hey, what is with the data? What is with, if I would send variable data across the world? Because my business case is based on that. That shouldn't be the case, so we have to be careful here. Human resources, employees awareness. So, as I said before, we have around about 176,000 employees. Roundabout on the campus in Shenzhen, there are various numbers, around about 40 to 60,000 on the campus. So that's more or less a smaller city. Not from the Chinese point of view, from a European point of view, that's a smaller city. So how do you make sure that those, or that all employees understand their the requirements and their responsibility regarding security? So we set up intensive tests. Everyone has to pass tests. There will be an audit based on that, etc., etc. So that is some kind of security and employees' awareness. Also, have you ever defined in your company what security critical positions are? How do you do that? Who has access to which kind of data, to sensitive data? Have you ever thought about that? And how do you do that? So we are definitely doing that, and based on these critical positions, people have to pass extra tests, have to learn extra stuff, how to behave. Research and development. That is a huge part, because how do you include security into your R&D processes right from the beginning? If you start thinking about, okay, I want to build a car, do you start thinking about security when the car basically leaves the belt and you said, oh, I have to think about security? Oh, I can put in that and that stuff, but it's definitely too late. And now, security, that was mentioned before. Security is nowadays a marketing factor, it's a business factor, and it becomes also a quality. So security becomes a quality factor in your products. That's one of our mantras. Verification. So it's assume nothing, believe no one, and check everything. So we have multiple verification steps before a product goes to the market. And one of them, for example, is the ICSL, what we call Integrated Cybersecurity Lab. And then now it becomes very interesting. The business groups want to bring products to the market, and now they have to pass a security test, whatever kind of product that is. It might be the mobiles, a mobile phone that has to pass very extensive security test. For example, for Android or the apps provided with their phone, the infrastructure, the phone itself, the hardware, software, all that has to pass a test, followed by basically all the products have to pass the test. And now the business groups put pressure onto the test lab, hey, we have to go to the market. Luckily, my boss exactly is the head of that ICSL, and he says, hey, if you don't pass that lab, don't pass the test, you don't go to the market. That itself puts pressure on R&D, and they really have to think about security. They have to include security right from the beginning. Otherwise, you don't go to the market. Third-party supplier management. As I said before, we are a worldwide company. We have several thousand third-party suppliers. How do you judge who of them is a risk? Because we basically guarantee the security of our products. So now we have, as I said, I don't know how many thousand suppliers. How do you make sure that that stuff that we get and build our stuff on is really secure? For example, I don't know if you have heard that before. Have you ever heard about a company that gets samples or takes samples from the PCB, so from the boards, and drills holes into the boards, and exactly looks into those holes and into the stuff we get from there, if there's anything between the layers of the main boards, for example? So that is what we're doing, as a very short example. Manufacturing, anti-tampering, anti-implementation, anti-counterfeiting, that is part of the manufacturing process. Also the logistics and return logistics. If we get stuff, for example, hard disks from our company, from our customers, the data has to be deleted on site before that stuff gets sent, for example, back to Brazil or to China. That's part of that process. Delivering security service securely, a very hot topic. So we have a big security, we have a big managed services group. So those guys go on site and have to behave in a certain manner. It's not simply plugging in their laptop into the local network, doing this stuff and saying, I've done my job, go home. So without explicit authorization and all that stuff, nothing will happen on customer side. So we are very, very careful here. Issue defect and vulnerability resolution. So that is basically, the main topic is at the bottom. P-cert, P-cert integration. That's what we call product security incident response team. So if you find vulnerabilities in the product based on software, hardware, because products are definitely not 100% secure, there's a human factor involved into that. So how do you inform the customer about vulnerabilities? How do you inform him about critical vulnerabilities? That's a very sensitive topic, and that is exactly what we are handling here. And my lovely topic, audit. So walk the talk basically means we do very often audits, we do regular audits to exactly be able, do we really live what we talk about? So that is basically an overview. So I said right at the beginning, do I expect those questions from a customer? I would love to have those questions from a customer. Do I get them? Not very often. So what we do with all our expertise and experience, do we share that? Yes. That is exactly why I'm here. So we set up what we call Top 100 Questions white paper. You can use it. It is exactly that what I've talked about. Exactly those 11 chapters are filled with a various number of questions, and please ask your vendors if they are able to answer those questions. So in there, it's on the top, is the link where you can download that white paper and make use of it. It's not ISO, it's not ISF, it's not whatever it is. It is our expertise, and originally that catalog of questions was much, much, much bigger, but we condensed it to around about 100 questions, because otherwise people will not read it. It's that simple. So that is basically what I wanted to talk about. And to come to the end, I want to show you something we started in 2014. It's about perception and reality. It's a study. Yes, we sponsored it, but it was done by an independent company. And it's about perception and reality. And I'm sure you definitely will find yourself. And it's available in German, English, and Chinese. If you love to read Mandarin, if you're able to do that, or not, whatever language you prefer. So you can download it, and I'll give you only a very short sample of the top 5. And the blue or green one is here on the left-hand side, it's blue. So what do the Germans think about China? And on the right-hand side is what the Chinese think about German. And round about 37% think about economy power of the Chinese. 60% of the Chinese think the same about Germany. 20% think about increase of population. 38% of the Chinese think about automotive industry. So we have done an excellent job here. 15% think about communism. When they hear China, 19% think about beer. So the third one plus the second one plus the third one, so that's a good combination. 15% think about Chinese wall, 90% about industry and technology, 40% about Chinese food, and 12% about German characterism. So that is a very short overview of that questionnaire, of that study. And as I said before, you definitely will find yourself in there. So there are a lot of differences between perception and reality. Okay, that's it from my side. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thanks.